Today, we spend the hour on one of the most controversial legacies of the Bush administration, the use and legal justification of torture. In the week since President Obama released the torture memos, a former FBI interrogator testified to the inefficacy of the CIA's so-called enhanced interrogation techniques. A former aide to Colin Powell said the interrogations were aimed at building the case for the Iraq War, and a coalition of advocacy groups has just launched a campaign to disbar 12 former Bush administration lawyers. Meanwhile, in Spain, despite the opposition of the Spanish Attorney General, Judge Baltasar Garzón has launched probes into the torture at Guantanamo, as well as 6 Bush administration lawyers who provided the legal framework for the use of torture. Here in the United States, just how much change or accountability the Obama administration will bring remains to be seen. Last week, President Obama reneged on a promise to release photographs showing the abuse of prisoners at overseas CIA and military jails.
The publication of these photos would not add any additional benefit to our understanding of what was carried out in the past by a small number of individuals. In fact, the most direct consequence of releasing them, I believe, would be to further inflame anti-American opinion and to put our troops in greater danger. Moreover, I fear the publication of these photos may only have a chilling effect on future investigations of detainee abuse.
Later in the week, President Obama invited further criticism for deciding to resurrect military commissions for prisoners at Guantanamo. White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs defended the military tribunal system.
The president, as I said during the debate, said that properly structured military commissions had a role to play. The changes that he is seeking, he believes, will ensure the protections that are necessary for these to be conducted in order to reach that certain justice as well as live up to our values.
Well, I'm joined today in the Firehouse studio by 2 people who've been closely following the Bush administration's treatment of prisoners held overseas and helped expose many of its facets. Philipe Sands is a British attorney and professor at University College London, the author of the book Torture Team, Rumsfeld's Memo and the Betrayal of American Values. The book uncovered the role of U.S. government lawyers in authorizing torture. It's cited as a key influence by the Spanish lawyer prosecuting the case against the 6 Bush administration lawyers. I'm also joined by New Yorker staff writer Jane Mayer. She's the author of The Dark Side, the inside story of how the war on terror turned into a war on American ideals, for which she recently won the Ridenour Book Prize and the New York Public Library's Helen Bernstein Book Award for Excellence in Journalism. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! I wanted to start off on the issue of the Spanish Parliament, actually, just in the last hours yesterday, saying, well, Philipe Sands, maybe you can explain it, because it's been hard to understand where Spain stands on this issue and on their crusading judge, Baltasar Garzón.
Well, so Spain's law has basically allowed its criminal courts to investigate international crimes such as torture and other international abuses for many years. That was the basis, of course, for the case brought against Senator Pinochet a decade or so ago. The decision yesterday is merely a recommendation by the Parliament to change the law and to limit its application to situations in which Spaniards are involved or the perpetrators are present on Spanish soil. It's, as I understand it, only prospective. It only looks to the future, and so it has no effect on existing investigations. But more to the point, in any event, the case brought against the Bush Six, the cases that Judges Velasco and Baltasar Garzón are looking at, do indeed involve individuals either of Spanish nationality or Spanish residency. So I don't think this will have any effect for ongoing proceedings.
What about this pressure that's being brought on the Spanish Parliament and on everyone in Spain right now?
I think it may actually not be the case which is being investigated in relation to the Bush Six and the Guantanamo abuses, but the Israeli investigation, which has been underway for some considerable period of time, and that has caused tremendous pressure to be brought to bear on the Spanish government from the Israeli government. And I'm not sure, to be honest,
investigation is?
That investigation concerns abuses in Gaza and other occupied territories. And I'm not sure, what I'm not hearing is that there is any huge pressure from the Obama administration in relation to these issues. There have been high-level conversations and discussions. The criminal investigation is underway. The Spanish judges have sent what are called letters rogatory, asking questions to the US Department of Justice. The Attorney General, Mr. Holder, has said he will treat those seriously and look at them properly.
Well, let's look at the Spanish case here, the 6 people and who they are and where they come from in the Bush administration.
Well, the Bush 6, amazingly and coincidentally, are the same 6 lawyers I happen to have focused on. And in that sense, I think the book contributed to a catalyzing effect. The lawyers that you've got in no particular order of significance: Alberto Gonzales, the former Attorney General and White House counsel; David Addington, who was Vice President Cheney's counsel; Jay Bybee, who's been very much in the news recently in relation to the second of his memos which has come out; John Yoo, who probably wrote large parts of that memo, still teaching at Berkeley Law School; Doug Feith, who was the number 3 in the Pentagon; and finally Jim Haynes, who was Mr. Rumsfeld's lawyer as general counsel. I don't think any of those individuals are going to be taking vacations in Tuscany in the foreseeable future.
I wanted to go to Feith. You interviewed Feith, actually, is that right?
I did, and
Explain.
You can... Well, I interviewed him in December 2006. I recorded the interview. I've produced a transcript of the interview. I've put it on the website of Vanity Fair magazine, so it's available for all to see. People can form their own view. He, during the course of that interview, confirmed the significance of the decision on the Geneva Conventions, that none of the detainees at Guantanamo could have rights under it, as a basis for moving forward, if you like, on harsher techniques. He, amazingly, when I first met him, denied that he'd had any role in the interrogation issues. I pointed out to him when I was with him that his name appeared on the actual memorandum signed by Donald Rumsfeld, authorizing new techniques of interrogation. He changed his tune, but we've seen more recently other documents emerge, the Senate Armed Services Committee emerge, placing him really at the center of the whole operation.
Former Undersecretary of Defense Douglas Feith, one of these 6 lawyers named in the Spanish complaint, denies, as you said, directing the Bush administration's torture policy. Well, an interview on the O'Reilly Factor on Fox earlier this year, Feith also criticized your work, Philipe Sands.
First of all, what I understand about the allegations about me personally, I happen to know, are just backwards, and I'm being criticized for a position that I never advocated, and so the facts are just wrong. But there's also a broader point of principle here, which is what the Spanish authorities are considering doing is indicting people in the former U.S. government officials for giving advice to the president. And the idea that a foreign official can disagree with advice given to the president, they're not talking about action, and they're not even talking about directing people to take action. They're talking about people who were advising the president. What's going on in Spain is implementing essentially an idea that a British lawyer has been proposing, a guy named Philipe Sands, who wrote an extremely dishonest book on the subject. So I knew that he was going around, and some other people were going around trying to find somebody in Europe who could bring indictments.
That's Douglas Feith.
He is, and he's every author's best publicist, because being on the Briley show in that way, of course, is wonderful for an unknown British lawyer. I have, as you know, recently published the paperback edition of the book. I've not changed a single word in relation to what I wrote about Mr. Feith. I stand by every word. He has obvious concerns. He needs to set the record straight, in his view, to avoid investigations that are underway. He's also subject to a disbarment application, I think, that's been initiated this week. I think he faces very considerable difficulty, and I'm perfectly content to debate him any time or any place, and I'm perfectly happy for him to make those allegations. They're really without any foundation at all.
And Jane Mayer, the other members of the Bush 6, this grouping that have been, that the Spanish judge, Baltasar Garzón, is going after, where are they? What's happening with them?
Well, various things. David Addington has actually not been heard from for quite some time. So,
and his position was?
His position was the lawyer to Vice President Cheney, and then the chief of staff to Vice President Cheney. And he was a very forceful character who really helped shape the kind of what they called the new paradigm, this whole legal understanding that put certain terror suspects outside the rule of law. He was very important in shaping that. you know, some of the others, as mentioned, Janye is teaching at Bolt Hall in Berkeley. He's got a full course schedule for the fall, so I think he's coming back. And I think Alberto Gonzalez is still looking for a job, from what I've heard. I mean, they are a cloud hanging